here on Instagram, you guys will be able to check it out. All right. And so as the drill goes, we're going to go ahead and check everything on Facebook. If you guys can see me on Facebook, make sure to let me know in the comments below. Go ahead and drop some fire emojis down below. We're going to get started here in a couple of minutes. We're going to let a few people jump on. Okay. I wish I could have some music for you guys. We'll get that going one day. One day, right?
Yeah, some epic Hans Zimmer theme music.
Oh my gosh, that would be so good. But if I do that now, it would just like literally not be ready. It would just, it wouldn't work, you know, so.
Indeed.
But it's all good though. We're going to go ahead and share the screen and put a quick countdown to let some people jump on board. Let's see.
Get in.
Oh, jeez. I still get an echo. I get an echo. I don't know what it is.
I don't hear an echo at all on my end.
Yeah, I know.
Where it's coming from? Echo.
Oh, probably from me. It was me. I'm here telling you to put your volume down, and it's, you know, that's always fun. It's cool. It's cool, though. It's cool.
It is. Can you guys, you're accepted.
Yeah, right. Can you guys see my screen at all? Tap in. You can see it. That's so perfect. We're gonna go ahead and put it on.
I love it.
Oh, yes, it sure is. It sure is. And just because I love you guys, we're gonna go ahead and put the volume up on this. Oh, it's not gonna let me. No, it's not gonna let me. I did that for no reason, Kev. I can only hear it in my headphones. So.
Really?
Yeah. Dun. Guys, we're gonna get started here in the next couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
We got some loud things in there. I'm going to go ahead and check on Facebook, see how everyone's doing. The cool part about StreamYard is that it goes ahead and saves it. And then I can go ahead and go back and we can edit and have fun with it. And, Tina's on.
I'm about to get this StreamYard popping. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
This is dope. Technology upgrades. Let's get it.
Awesome.
Let's get it. When you feel inspired to share shit with the world, upgrade that tech. I see it.
Yep. See, I can hear the music and I'm so jamming to this right now, but it is what it is.
It's whatever you make it.
In the meantime, I want everyone to go ahead and invite your friends out. Make sure you have some questions that are going to be set up down below. I wish you could hear the music, bro. It is so popping. It is so popping right now. You guys can just sing with me.
You can. Everyone get your voices ready. Let's get the squad harmonizing through Instagram. Through all the lands. How y'all doing out there in Instagram world? How we feeling?
Talk to the people.
What's up, people? We in it. Shouldn't at least said ideals.
Yeah, he said. My only thing is that here we go. We're gonna go ahead and figure this out right now.
We are the music.
Yes.
I love it. I want that countdown to be. That just gave me a really dope idea. Some stuff we'll do for some lightning vids when we do our when we get the Creator course automated online.
Yeah.
We do some dope shit for that. I love it.
It's still showing only friends on my end, and I'm looking to change that real quick so we can get started here.
Word. Michelle C. Yeah, we'll get that signature popping.
Literally.
All right.
It is what it is.
We'll get that popping. Crystal, what up?
Oh, we got some people coming on board. We're going to let everybody just another 30 seconds here and let you guys know that we are live. You guys can go ahead and share this out to all your friends, all your family, anybody that you'd like to go ahead and let everybody know about this thing here. Okay. I'll go ahead and close
Scott asked what the Facebook page name is.
Oh, for my Facebook, it's actually V Billies, V Billions. So my Facebook, you know my name on Facebook, right? It's Veronica Adamus. And you can also find me on Facebook.com/V the billions because Facebook doesn't let me change anything on my page.
Yeah, it's like a whole approval process. I changed my name
crazy.
and like,
you know what? And I don't
even
bother.
what I said I did, and it was a mission. But I haven't been on Facebook like that in forever.
Awesome, awesome. So our countdown is over, guys. I hope you guys are having an amazing week, an amazing Friday. We're going to go ahead and open it up by saying the Superhuman Movement is where we focus on tapping into our unique abilities and living your life like a superhuman, okay? Our life coaching, which is my life coaching, revolves around primary pillars of success, all aspects of health, wealth, and spirituality that can take your journey above and beyond the impossible. You can find out more about what I do and what I'm about at thesuperhumanmovement.com. And you can also find what I'm doing outside of that, which / partnerships after that. So again, we are here with the awesome Kevin Walton. He's a transformational specialist. I like transformational specialist, by the way. He's a spiritual guide and activational speaker. I mean, outside of that, he's one of my best friends. He's an actor, rapper. He's dedicated his life to use his position and contribution in developing more united and advanced society through enhancing greater self-awareness, inner clarity, emotional maturity, which a lot of you guys know it's very, very key and foundational in everything that we do. Community development for my people who love nonprofits and community involvement, and self-actualization in men, women, children, and people of all ages, and dogs and cats and all that. So everyone, please do me a huge favor and welcome the amazing Kevin A. Walton, aka Source Radiance.
I appreciate it.
How are you doing today?
Phenomenal. After that intro, I'm even more activated than I normally am. We know how that shit gets.
This is how we're doing it.
The cipher in the middle. Let's get it popping.
Oh, we got some people. We got some CIT people. What's up, Cassie? What's going on? Oh, thank you. Actually, you know where this shirt was from. This is that Vegas shirt. So we just came back from Vegas and we got some really cool attire from Vegas, and yeah, we did more shopping than anything else. But you know why? Because we're abundant AF. So that's awesome. Right. So anyways, I'm going to get this started by saying one thing and one thing only. I love you and I'm grateful for you. Okay. And I know a lot of people feel the same way. Okay. If you guys feel the same way, you guys know what I'm talking about. Put some fire emojis down below, some hearts down below. If Kevin in any way, shape, or form has impacted your life, whether through an event, whether through his work, whether through just a quick connection or anything that he shares on his social media, guys, please show him some love. Little does he know, he does know because I've told him a million times, but a lot of what he's offered myself and the community in general has really catapulted my life. Has allowed me to tap more into my creatorhood, my willingness, and my resilience to just keep going, right? And so none of this would be possible if he hadn't pushed me outside of my comfort zone and to that edge to say what else is there and how much greater can Veronica be. So thank you, first and foremost, Kevin. So a lot of people don't know Kevin and I have known each other for, 20 years-ish. Well, almost.
Yeah, somewhere between 15 and 20. Yeah, for sure.
20 years. Yeah, I think it's between the 7, because I remember when we met, it was actually on the set of Spring Bling.
Spring Bling.
a commercial for Spring Bling. Does anybody remember?
Who remembers that shit?
Does anybody remember Spring Bling at all? Does anybody remember any of that? Are we just that, we've just been here longer than some people to remember that. But anyways, they were commercials to highlight, or the Spring Bling in general was like the spring break-ish, if you will, of MTV. And so they would do all this crazy stuff and they would come out here and do like beach vibes. And I don't even remember, it was like dating shows and different things. And so we did the commercial. We were on set to do the commercial to introduce that. So that was a lot of fun. That was when MTV was out here quite often. So yeah, that was like the beginning of our journey. And so when I met Kevin, I mean, he was just Kevin Walton, K-Dub, the rapper. He was a different spirit. He's still a very awesome spirit, but he was in a different space. So before I tell his story for him, and because this is such an important aspect of him in general, I do want you to share with everyone who you were then and what brought you here, and just like a 30-second snippet or something with that, because it was really important to me who you became anyway. So.
For sure. I appreciate that. All of that in 30 seconds?
No. Yeah, I'm just, Limitless. We have all the time in the world.
No, I would say, you know, for me, I realized some really important dynamics in myself growing up into being on this journey. I guess I'll speak it from the two main conflicts that I struggled with and what was necessary to kind of step into where I was. So I've always had this inkling in me to, you know, think differently, see the world change, do different dynamics. And I always had this access to certain spiritual capacities that I didn't know what to do with, because in the 80s, growing up in my area, no one was talking about stuff like this. So it was just like things I was tapping into. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll just, whatever, keep moving on about my days. And when I was 17, I was like sharing this story because it's such a dope moment. When I was 17, my mom put me onto this book called Seth Speaks, right? Seth Speaks. And prior to that, I'd already read Conversations with God, and I was already like, dope, this book thinks differently. It's a different space. And I said, I like this. I kind of resonate with some of this. But when I read Conversations with God, or not, when I read Seth Speaks, that book was the first time that I had come across anything that had spoken to everything I was experiencing and wasn't like, had no words for, but on a multidimensional capacity. And it was the first time I remember holding the book when I started reading it, and I was like, no one's around me, but I was like, I'm not crazy. That's
how I felt when I read The Secret. So I totally get it.
Legit. So when that happened, that was my first experience of, okay, whatever I'm tapping into, I'm making a conscious decision to dive into that. And what came of that, though, was a very interesting journey where I had all these ideas about who I thought I was, who I was supposed to be, what it meant to do whatever, what it meant to be cool, what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be, all those like narratives that now I realize were incredibly misaligned in different ways, right? And then I had this interesting space where I was tapping these insights that were undeniable, unavoidable, and this constant, I'm going to do stuff like this. And they just kept, clashing. And on my journey, it was what I can speak to now. It was a very clear understanding of shifting out of duality consciousness into unity consciousness. I didn't have the framework for that at the time, though. And it's where I had these moments where I could feel these emotions that I didn't know what to do with or what to process. I could see certain states in the world, and I would have like judgments about what I would see and how we ought to handle it. But it was from a very combative, conflicted, monumental, revolutionary mode, but not in a line from love revolutionary mode. And I remember it all kind of came to a head. I've had a few different experiences in my life that brought me to one, but I'll tell you the one that really softened me a little bit more. And this one is important to me because it showed me as a man the absolute imperative choice to feel and process emotions. I recognize where I would have these moments where things were rocking in my life and things were moving, and I would just hit these walls where everything would stall. And I remember one night I was sitting there going, what is it that I keep bumping up against? What is it that I keep doing where things are rocking? I hit this one space. And I just kind of sat with that one night before I went to bed. And I just remember asking myself that question. And I was like, I just want to know what that is. And then out of nowhere, in the middle of the night, I wake up bawling, like bursting with emotion. And I'm like, snot, saliva, tears, everything. I'm just in it. And I felt all this pain and all this energy I would suppress and all these things I never addressed. And moments I could have had really soft spaces with myself, I didn't take. And I started recognizing all the ways I avoided or neglected my personal responsibility in the roles I was playing in my life. So I started noticing the impact I was having from what I was doing or not doing, and people that were very near and dear to me that I acted in all kinds of misalignments with and was out of integrity with. And I had to own all that and all this guilt that came through and all of it. And it was such an eye-opening moment where I was like so open.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like threatening. It didn't feel exposed. It was just like, this space is freedom. This space is liberation. And there's something inside this moment is asking me to come through. And it really catapulted where I started to become more of a leader in this work. Because I would say where I started the light beings and all those things that kind of unfolded came shortly after that. And it was a space where these things had to open up for me to kind of take that step going in. And then I've had other experiences along the way that were interesting too, and testaments to this. But I say that to say, for all the ways that I thought I had the right idea at the time, and where I was still combative, still judgmental, still in my own inner conflicts, witness outside of me, still would take things to heart, still thought some people were against me, and all of that. As I started to shift to where I'm at now in this embodiment, it was the realization of how all those experiences truly were offerings, and how I started getting a glimpse of who I was actually like meant to be if I were to truly live from that space in my heart. And feeling that divine essence of self, and feeling this thing that I'm all connected to. And I remember where it started to change for me, really landing where, it was like 27, 28, 29, I started feeling this embodiment come more, and I started shifting, and I felt it where I started hearing some of my old music as KW The Truth. And I was like, the message is still inside of it, but it's like surrounded by contradictions and judgments and things. And I was like, something about this is asking me to shift. And that's where I remember thinking of where my moniker and even the way I represent myself had to change. And based on what I was stepping into. And I remember just getting quiet, and I said, what is it that I'm asking myself to embody now? And I remember Source was clear that was going to be that no matter what. And so in Source is like, we talk about it. That's what I call God, the all, because to me, the idea of what's usually depicted as God is still smaller than the concept of what is the source of all creation. And so I acknowledge it as that because it's beyond any other title. So I only, like, the closest thing to me that could even come close and still wouldn't be the full thing is Source. And I sat in the silence with it, and then I felt like there was something to show, something to shine, something to express in that. And with having had the light beings at the time, we started developing that. It was like, you're asking the light of truth to shine through you, and if that's the case, and you really want to live by that, then you keep shining that. And then the radiance kind of came, and I put the words together, and I was like, this is what it is. And it was like, and I remember everything shifting in terms of the way I wanted to, present myself. And that's when I started catching language even more and being more deliberate and concrete. And,
those words, the words.
Yeah.
Which I still to this day, I catch myself here and there. I don't think we're completely immune, although we are totally more aware. And that's the key. It's just to increase awareness, increase that capacity. And then obviously when you bring it to your awareness, it's like it's a choice. And we always talk about where it's oblivious and where we're actually making the active choice to continue making that choice now that we're aware of it. So I know a lot of you, some of you may or may not know what we're talking about when we talk about awareness and all this kind of stuff. And many of you are still in the beginning or at the precipice of understanding more of yourselves to be able to understand everything that really is who we are in an embodiment in just ourselves, within ourselves. It's like everything is created within. Let's just put it that way. Okay. We are the creator of our life. Okay. I know that's really where it begins. Everything that we are, everything that we experience begins from within. And a lot of people, whenever we talk about religion, and I don't typically like to talk about that on these calls, but I have to tap into a little bit because it's a whole different, it's different when we consider that is a structure. And then this is like the structure of existence in general. Like this goes beyond the idea of what's been written in a book, right? And what's been written by man through a message, because everything is by perception. We're people, right? Even ourselves, we can be distorted, even though we might feel aligned, And so it's interesting how all that happens. And it's either way, there's nothing quote unquote wrong or right with it. It's just aligned or misaligned. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned that I thought was really powerful just within my life, is understanding the difference between that. And we'll get a little bit more into that. But I want to talk about more about you, because I know a lot of people were really interested on, even for me, because people always ask, how are you able to do so much? How can you wear all these hats, but still be present with who you are and true to yourself? And can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's actually, you helped me with that, because me, I was all over the place. And I was able to take who I was all over the place and still bring it and uniquely express it within myself, still prioritizing what was like really important to me.
Yeah, 100%. And you alluded to it a moment ago, in understanding that it all starts from within. So when we're used to believing ourselves to be separate, right, from anything, we usually play the game of life from the outside in, which is literally in direct contradiction of nature. And that's why it always
understand that. Can you repeat that and
Yeah.
expound on it? Because that's
Absolutely.
such a key in anything, understanding just that one factor, that one fact is that everything starts from within.
Exactly. So when we're living from the outside in, you're living in contradiction of nature. And you can even start to understand that even in its simplest form, just realizing that you experience everything around you from the inside. Like you look at things and you feel something inside. That's where the experience for us is happening. So when that starts to land the most, then you realize everything in our lives, the approach is meant to be that way. It's actually designed for us to check in with our heart, and centered in that capacity, we use that energy to move, and then we apply the mind to support understanding the parameters of the dimension we're in. So to be more specific, if we're in physical reality here, that means we will use our physical mind to support the resonance we feel in our hearts that are calling us to step into a more authentic expression, more authentic action, more authentic everything. So when we're flowing from the inside out, now the game does not become about time management or life balance or all the things that we talk about when we think something outside of us is where the answer lives. When you start to adjust and go from the inside out, and now we're internal cause, external effect, you realize it's about self-management and understanding where you are, what matters to you, and what is the most important thing to address and do in this moment. So now when you start to look at that, you go, okay, so instead of wanting to fit all these things into the idea of time, it really is sit back and go, what really is the most important thing to me in my life? Mm-hmm. What are the areas of my life that matter the most? Mm-hmm. What are the roles I play in my life? Right? What are my values and principles? And you start to look at this inner landscape of you. Mm-hmm. And when you look in this inner landscape, it starts to get really clear. Wow, I'm playing out these 3 roles that have nothing to do with anything when I actually sit back and look at what matters to me. Cool. So no more apply those roles. Look at all the time that just freed up in my life in this area. Mm-hmm. And then you start making those adjustments across the board. And then you also start to orient yourself to life differently. So instead of the concept of wanting to balance your life, you start shifting into living in harmony, or the optimal functioning ratio in this moment. And the optimal function ratio is that everything in your life will orient itself according to priority. Right. So if I have the role of being a father, a teacher, a facilitator, a business owner, an actor and writer, friend, lover, son, brother, and these are roles in my life that I've chosen to take on and own, me getting clear on what they mean to me getting clear on what I define as my responsibilities for them. Now I actually have a reference point to check in with, are these the roles I want to play in my life? Am I actually applying them according to that? Mm-hmm. And am I also meeting the comprehensiveness of my life in those roles? And that just that little shift of reorienting, going from the inside out, drastically shifts the approach of our schedules, our time. And all of a sudden we can be doing a lot of things at once, but we're very clear in the way that we take time with them. And if something shifts, like if I'm, launch my course and then I'm going to shoot a season of the TV show. Now, right? Right? Then I must orient myself to match what's the most pressing moment and what things can be adjusted to meet it, so that I'm still keeping everything in my awareness and applying it, but there's adjusting my schedule. And so it's always lived in motion, which is why I always mention it be harmony and not balance, because you're always living your life. Your life isn't going to stop to adjust to you. It adjusts in the movement and even in the beingness. And so this shift is how you start that process. And the clearer we get within ourselves, the clearer everything outside of us becomes. And that's such an important dynamic when it comes to living the embodiment,
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I know, like many of us, especially after the year that we had, and we have to understand something. This is not the first time the world has been has shown up in this way for us to be able to grow. The only difference is that now it's on a grander scale where everyone is feeling it, right? And a lot of people, there's different people, YouTubers or thought leaders and things like that talk about it. It's like the new age and all this kind of stuff. And yes, it is, but it's not what people think. Okay. It's not just because of, oh my God, it's like the sign of the times and all that. No, it's a sign of how much more aware we're becoming. And yeah, it is the idea of being woke, but it goes so much more beyond that. You know, it's not just in a conspiracy theory kind of way, in a fear-based way at all, which you can take it that way. Absolutely. It's your choice. But seeing it from the sign of love coming back to be more of itself, right? And love just wants to love, and bringing it back to that, that's where the whole thing shifts. There's no way we can love this experience. It doesn't feel good. There's no way we can love our past selves. We were terrible. There's no way we can love somebody who's hurting others. There's no way to do that. But can you go more into that? Because I don't want to give it all away. I want you to talk more about this. But the way that you broke it down to me was like a, whoa. It was like sucking helium out of a balloon. You're like, oh my God, it's space. You know?
That is so true.
It feels that way.
So true. That's hilarious.
Like after coming up from swimming or something for a long period of time, it was such a burst, you know, and it's refreshing, but then it becomes scary because you're just like, whoa, we have this much power. What do we do with it? You know,
100%. Yeah, and you know, even when you spoke to the woke concept, I just so we're all clear, everyone out there in virtual land and in the world. If you say that you're woke and you're still living a life from fear as your baseline, you're still sleeping. It's so important to understand that concept. Because when you start to tap into more of the game, there are things that become less pressing and you shift your perspective. And so when you realize that power isn't something you have, it's what you are. Right? When that really starts to land, you realize just how much impact you actually have, how much command you actually have over your life, and how receiving the information your experiences are offering you is far more important than judging it. And so when we talk about this game, I call it the game of limitation, right? The game of limitation is what physical reality is. It's because we're more than all of this. And anyone who's ever rocked me before, you guys have heard me say, you're the more. You're more than your ideas of yourself. You're more than your identities. You're more than the emotions you feel. You're more than your experiences. You're more than all of it. And when that starts to land, you suddenly recognize just how much everything that has ever shown up, everything you've ever felt, everything you've ever tapped into has literally been an offering that is calling you forward into more of yourself. And that's what this game of limitation is about. It's we're going to pretend to be in form and act like we're separate from each other and explore the nature of and journey toward full self-acceptance till you're embodying your fullest authentic expression of unlimited creative potential. Like, take that in for a minute. That this journey is about you becoming so intrinsically accepting of self. You embody your fullest authentic expression of unlimited creative potential. And that's this journey we're on, that you step, and every step you take is a constant revelation of, am I actually living more authentically embodied, or am I still concealing love for myself? Am I actually stepping in and shining my light, or am I still apprehensive and holding? And the whole point is we keep stepping open and engaged and in to keep embodying the truth and that divine essence in us to be brought forth. And we'll create whatever experiences are necessary for us to meet that, no matter what it takes. And that's why we'll witness a world where you'll see things and go, why would anyone want to create this? Or why would we see that? It's like, because this is what it took to get your attention to go, I could probably start making some different choices in my life. Then that's what it fucking took. And you want that information. And you know what's funny too, when we think about the sign of the times, you know I'm a history buff. I love history, right? In every capacity, multidimensional history. So we have to make that like a show at some point. So multidimensional history.
First of all, we got a list. We got a long list of things we're going to create shows.
So what's funny about certain things in history, and even with certain civilizations that there's mystery around why they disappeared. When you start to understand patterns of human behavior and the nature of consciousness looking to evolve, There's a lot of things we're playing out now that's been played out in countless civilizations, including our own history. When you look at the beginning of America as the states, United States, they were doing all this stuff in politics then. The reason why it's so romanticized in history is because there were monumental moments in what was taking place in the land, and like wars and all those things. So it's very easy to romanticize history. But when you're in it, it's the same things we're doing now. Like, it's the same reason why people like Martin Luther King is so revered now, but during his time, he was hated by a ton of people, including Black people, right? So it's like, and so in our history where people are like, well, it's because of technology. People were using the printing press to shame and talk shit in politics and do these things in those spaces. They've been doing it like all the time. Like, it was, when I started research, I was like, oh, they were doing that in politics then too. And I remember when I used to think like, we're literally watching politics degenerate, but it's actually revealing similar patterns that happened before of things that were left unaddressed. And so when we look at the journey of life, and when I talk about this thing as a game of limitation, this game really is unconditional love exploring every possible way it returns to itself. That means we, pretending to be separate, are on a journey where we're exploring everything that it means to be us and what we're capable of doing with that when we live a more embodied life. And then we create all the necessary experiences to reveal that. And so when you think of certain things in life, and I remember when this really landed for me, I had an experience where I was sitting at the airport and my flight was delayed, and I was looking out at all the airplanes, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I just blasted out of this moment. And I was in this massive like area and container where it was like all the cosmos existed. And I'm witnessing this whole thing before me, right? And as this is happening, I watched the entire time flow of creation. And it's like every decision ever made all the time and everything it leads to. And prior to this moment, I had a really powerful notion where I stopped seeing tragedy and I only started seeing purpose. And it didn't mean I don't feel emotions or I was struggling with it. It just meant that I started to see like the encoding beyond the veil of everything that is showing up is a constant offering to what inherently within us is asking to come through. And when we ignore the message of what's asking to come through, we create more distortions because we'll create it however loud it has to get until we let it come through. Exactly. That glorious scenic route, right? And it was dope because when I realized this, it was that remembrance of everything genuinely is actually happening with purpose in mind. And even though it's arbitrary when you hear it stated generally, right? People go, yeah, everything happens for a reason. In our practice of Creatorhood, we actually can break down exactly the reason and the actual things that support it. And that's what we're talking about. And so when you witness like a year like 2020, you witness like the way this year started off, or you witness anything happening in the world or history, right? Like things that's got to be addressed in this country that we've talked about before, you know, where with the Native Americans and African Americans and Black people and then all the different populace here now, where it's a different notion, because even when you go back to what happened to the Japanese and Chinese, and there's so many narratives in this country, right? Because a lot of the things that established this country, the idea of the system they wanted to build was actually made sense. What no one realized at the time, and still what most people don't realize today, and my friend Noor and I were talking about this, and it is the approach inside of it was misaligned. Because if you're going to talk about living free as a human, and that doesn't include everyone that's on the same land as you, you're already in a misalignment, right? Now, what we know is when you're creating realities and you want to grow and experience and actually integrate, you must address all the things you created that were why that you weren't being that in the first place. And that's kind of this journey of life. And to me, and that's what we talk about, this game of life is exactly that. Every step we take, every choice we make, everything we say, that's coming from the feeling that we feel inside of us. We create the necessary experiences. We draw upon the necessary things, reflections, people, nature, events that are designed specifically to bring to our awareness things we are actually asking to address and make peace with and love and utilize, so we can actually live a more authentic, a more liberated, a more embodied life that actually supports the whole and not take away from it. Right. And because we've been living in contradiction of that, we've perpetuated narratives of what we thought life was. And then when we see those things and we don't know how to properly attune ourselves, address ourselves, or address it, we just create more that builds upon it and perpetuates. And that's what we witness happen in life.
Instead of peeling back the layers, we're putting more up, right? So then we come to the point
where we add more color. Yeah.
We're suffocating ourselves, not realizing that in order for us to breathe, all we got to do is let go and allow.
Surrender that shit.
You know what I mean? That's surrender. And that was a huge factor for me, especially stepping into an entrepreneurial journey. I'm sure it was the same for you. And for some time, because you started to make choices that pushed you beyond the edge, right? And so, you know, especially when you decided to shift, everything started breaking down around you to the point that even yourself, like you didn't have your own space, but you were as happy as can be. Why? Because it was your choice to be there. Right. And I think I wanted to touch base on that only because a lot of people assume, especially with how you are now, how they like to say it, well put together. I mean, it came with a lot of experience. It's not like you just woke up one day, you're like, okay, cool. I'm Kevin. You know, I got here, I got, you know, the CIT course, and I just came up with it one day and totally just started charging people. And like people started calling me. Like, people assume this happens overnight. It doesn't. Rome wasn't built overnight, and it's true. It takes work and effort. And then now realizing is even that, how long I've known you, I'm like, holy crap. You know, like this journey I watched unfold. It felt like an instant, of course, because no, some time is a construct, whatever, or, you know, whatever. Anyways, but that's a whole other topic that we're going to save for like the exclusive interview. But talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people don't know. Guys have seen him on TV. People have seen you in commercials and shows, and you're going into season 3 of Sisters. If you guys have not seen that, it's a wonderful show on BET, produced, written, I believe, also by Tyler Perry. You guys know Tyler Perry's amazing, and this was like a really big thing for Kevin. I remember we were all really excited about it, and it came at the precipice of a lot of things in his life that were opening up. He himself had to address and honor and work through his own shit. And people don't understand that, 100%. You know, and talk a little bit about that, because you know, watching, because I have a lot of entrepreneurs that are watching right now.
Yeah, for sure. Seems like, yes, tell me more. Yes. Tell me more. Yes. CIA, we will let you know how to live a more embodied life. Keep rocking with us. Keep rocking with us. So, and also what's also important for me about my journey and the experiences that brought it here is, you know, what we teach in Creatorhood is it's experiential, right? It's not just theory. It's not just the idea of something, or like a philosophy I thought about once. It's genuinely been a constant, proven, experiential embodiment and path of life. And that understanding that it changed everything for me, because the more I kept having these insights, the natural inclination was like to explore it. Like, what would it mean if I did like this? What would it mean if I did like this? And I started experiencing it. And to your point in question, you know, when I remember getting to a point where I was exploring what I would do from where I was at. And I felt this calling. You know, I was doing the music, and then the acting was presented to me. And then there was this other part, which is obviously what I'm now, the dominant portion of my life. And it was, you know, I'd always share insights, even to whatever capacity that I understood the information at the time, I would share. And that's really what started leading me into being more of a facilitator, was just sharing with my friends all the time and having these conversations. When it really got clear for me, and I said, you know what, I've had it. Like, I would do random odd jobs here, just to get a little extra bread here so I can keep doing my music thing. And I'm like depending on other people. And the woman I was seeing at the time too, you know, she like before the full-fledged I'm going all in, like she was supporting me a lot in different dynamics when it came to like me making music, doing studio, and I would crash at her crib sometimes. Then it got to a point where I realized I want to go all in this, and it's something inside of me is like, it's time, do that so you can really embody more of you. And, you know, the thing that really stood out to me, the final kicker, is I was doing private security work, right? Like bodyguard work and stuff. And I did it for I did a couple of gigs for, you know, G Unit when they were popping, and I did a couple of gigs for a few other people. And then I was working at the club, and I was doing a few things. And I'll never forget, we were doing bodyguard work, like personal security for this prince, young dude, just in our vibe. And he would intentionally get into conflicts with people so that we'd have to step in for him. Like we would end up getting in fights because we were there. So he's like, he felt extra hard because he had extra hands and fists and shit. So, and I remember the last time I had enough, it was like, nothing about this makes sense to me. Because even the idea of having to fight, I had finally got to a place where I grew out of that for myself, where it was like, there's just better decisions I can make than getting in fights all the time. And like when we used to get into fights. So I said, you know what? I'm done with all of this. I just want to dive into things I'm doing. And I made the decision. I was like, I'm going all in. And I had no money saved, right? And I was like, I just want to do this. I want the music popping. I'm going to act. I'm going all in. And so I ended up living out of my car for 2 years because I didn't have anything like saving that space for that. And it was interesting and it was dope. It was probably one of the most liberating feelings of my life. And I felt such joy and peace in that decision because you already called it. Because it was the moment I said, I am responsible for my life, no one else. And I'm going to decide for me from here on out. And I'm going to trust everything that's around me and this insights I'm tapping into. I'm going to trust that this insight that I keep tapping into is true. And then, and it's going to, like, things will unfold. And it was so dope because that notion came from the inside out, right? It wasn't like, because I'm tired of fucking around with these people, this, that. It was, I'm feeling it's time for me to step forward in this way. And so then when I'm doing, like, having business meetings or I'm rocking with people, I'm in rooms with all kinds of people who have all kinds of money and certain statuses, and you wouldn't tell the difference. Even though when this conversation ends, this meeting ends, I'm going in my car and I'm probably going to be sleeping in there tonight, and they're going to go do whatever. But it really landed for me, and this is where the fact of I exist, therefore I matter came from. It was my existence that showed me I mattered regardless of what I had. And so if I'm having this impact and I don't have money and I'm constantly all over the place, there's something to this. And all of a sudden, spaces where I noticed I'd walk into before where I was like, how are people going to see me? How now they're going to see, and I would feel that unease of my own self-judgment. I would walk in with my heart open, like, sup, I came here to fucking shine some light and do some shit. Let's rock. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden I felt way more comfortable in all kinds of spaces. And it was that willingness. And I had so much support from people who believed in me, even though they didn't see it yet. Like, people say, hey, anytime you got to come crash in my place, you come crash in my place. Right. Like one of my homies, Erica, I call her Dashboard Killer from a side experience that we had, but I won't put her on. I won't put that out there, Erica. So, but she was like, yo, come to my crib. She would let me put these whiteboards all over her walls and be like, I'm formulating and, you know, like masterminding and all this stuff. And it was like, and my homegirl, Kristen, who was so adamant whenever some music thing came in, she's like, Kevin, get here now and get on stage and freestyle and do your thing. It was like people everywhere were popping up like, how can I support you doing what you're doing, and not out of because I want anything from you. There's something to you and I want to see it live. And it was such a dope moment because as I was on that journey, little by little, the pieces started getting clear for me of where this is going to go, where we're going to step into. And then all of a sudden going from, you know, well, actually one other note, I like sharing this story because it demands creativity of people. So I remember one time I didn't have any gas in my car, right? Gas was kaput. And I was at the flea market off of the 79th and 27th. Yeah.
I know.
Right. So yeah. So I was at the flea market and I was like, damn, I got no gas. So, you know, what I'm going to do. And I started looking through my car and lifting up the, you know, things and scrounging. And I found 5 of my mixtapes that were underneath the seat. And so I got them. I just started selling my mixtapes in the parking lot until I got it. And $5 a pop, got $25, got gas and moved. Right. Yeah. And it was such a solid moment for me because it also was a testament to the willingness to just, you'll always figure it out if you're willing to look and be with it. Then the other part was from that, the notion of where I wanted this to go got clearer. So all of a sudden, the direction of taking my music, the direction of getting into acting. And then from that, things started to build. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to make money. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to make more money. All of a sudden, things are getting clear. All of a sudden, I'm doing more shows. And then the set group of everyone that would come rock, you know what I mean? Like all the love you'd always show me. Rocky and who else at the time, you know, my buddy Kenny, who's rocking with me, was still love him. Like all of our initial squad, that people that are always there. My homegirl Adiana, who she would always come to everything and would always spread the word to everything. And hearing my music, she would always tear up because it always landed like with certain songs. And it was like those moments in life.
It still lands for me. Still
legit,
lands.
You know,
right? And then I remember we were in the studio and we were doing the new stuff, and I'm like, whoa, this is so evolved. But that was the beginning of that. And there's something beautiful, innocent, and just that resonance from the beginning. It was there. It wasn't as clear, wasn't as developed, but it's like watching a child say their first word. You're like, it's not clear. We don't really know what they're saying, but you know that they're saying something really. Like I know.
That's so true. Yeah.
Those enunciation's gonna kick in, and we're gonna be like, oh, that's awesome, you know. And really, that's what it was. And this speaks clearly to what we all talk about, that it's not necessarily what you're saying, it's really how you're feeling. That pierces through beyond all of it.
100%. And it's dope to hear you said too, because I remember I actually was going through my iTunes and stuff, and I heard one of my old mixtapes on there, and I was listening to a track, and it never occurred to me at the time, you know, when I started writing the memory activation for Creatorhood, there was something that came through in one of my songs years before I'd even thought about doing this part of everything. And then I heard the song again, and it was like 3 lyrics were things I wrote in the memory activation. And I was like, it was already written. Like, it was like those moments of like, it was going to be. And it was such a powerful thing, because it seems to what you talk about. Like, there's these things are always in us. And obviously hindsight's always the 20/20, but the more we tune into ourselves, and obviously, you know, this is why I teach now, knowing this from that experience, the more that we tune into ourselves in real time, there are little divine sparks and essences of things within us that are catalysts to what it would mean for us to live more embodied. And we don't always notice them. Mm-hmm. And when you start to step into it more, you start to realize where they were on your path. And when that becomes a realization, you're far more conscious of them now for when you're going to the next one, because we're still living, right? We're still going to keep going forward with it. And it's so powerful. And the journey of then going from that to suddenly building it up. And then all of a sudden me just sharing, sitting on the edge of my trunk, right, with my homegirl Jules, or, you know, like, or with Monty Soul, and having conversations and we're talking, right?
Actually, Ryan Rose, because she does some amazing thing, guys. If you guys Etsy, I have to shout her out because I wear her stuff all the time. This is one of her. So fire. She's done, and we talk about this. So many people that we know her before, the ones that stuck with it, right, and stay true to themselves and just followed the path. You know, and obviously we're still associated with them because they did do that, right? Because we can only really follow along and go on a journey with people who are resonant, who are on the same plane of thinking, and how they like to say like-minded, right? It's really like-hearted, in my opinion. But, you know, and then we continue on that and watch them unfold. And I remember her because I modeled with her too. And I remember it was like this bikini stuff on like bikes and like beaches and all that. Yeah. And to come from there to arrive here. And obviously this is just a pit stop. Obviously we all know that all these little chapters and you know,
we still writing and living.
Story of our life, son. Anyways, but just to touch on that only because it's a beautiful way to reflect and seeing how far we've actually come, but so much more to go, and it's exciting. I was talking about this because I have really monumental decisions. There's a couple of monumental decisions coming up in my life, and like when I get into my head about them, what happens? I don't know what the hell to do. And outside sources are my quote unquote decision makers, right? Or the reasons why I do it. And it still doesn't feel right. Cause I'm just like, no, but it has to come from here, you know? And to be reminded, just sit still, just be with it. Right. Yeah. And it'll show up. It'll just show up. And it's been doing that to me. And I'm just like, whoa, you know,
that piece is the fundamental piece that is out of the scope of awareness of the majority of humanity, that when that integrates back into everyone, the same day that reaches critical mass, the instantaneous transformation of humanity is going to be incredible. It is because I used to live by that notion of anything worth having doesn't come easy. And you got to sacrifice everything and all. I used to live by that notion. And all of a sudden I realized, and I remember when it really landed for me, it's like, this shit is really happening from the inside out. If I feel like I'm less, that means I'm playing with less life force energy, less power. If I'm playing with less power, then the emittance of the truth of me, that unlimited creative potential and effortless flow, isn't expanding as rapidly nor as fast. So that means the action of me, my physical action, exactly. And it means I have to work harder to manifest and do than if I actually honored the beingness first and I owned who is it I'm asking myself to be now that lives this life, and I start to tap in that energy and expand in it. Now the vastness of the ripple effect of that capacity of power extends further, which means less action, less effort warrants greater results. It doesn't mean you won't take action. As we know, you're still going to do things. It's just you reorient to the proper flow of nature and everything flows far more effortlessly. And it doesn't mean you won't deal with adversity or plot twists. And even when you deal with those, because you're embodied, you navigate them effortlessly too. Oh, here's where we're at. This is what came up. Honor that. Here's the feelings. Cool. Here's what we will do with it. And it's fluid. And that little orientation for me, I remember why that landed. We often think we have to suffer in order to give value to things, and we do not.
Can you please expand on that, only because that's like the idea of almost everything taught. Like, no, I gotta sweat, we gotta sweat it out. It has to hurt, it has to be painful, has to be
right. Right. And knowing the difference between pain and suffering, right? Like, and also what people just usually describe as pain when it comes to working hard is really just discomfort, right? It's like discomfort means you're growing and expanding. Pain.
DK's leaving, so I'm just kidding.
DK, what up? What up, big man? What up, big man?
Everyone wish him happy birthday. He just turned 12.
Happy birthday, DK. Oh.
Nice. I know. I love you, baby.
Abundance. I'll tell you happy birthday 10 more times, DCarlo.
Like 10 more times regardless.
I told you already. I'll tell you a month from now, just to remind you.
They know it all. I told you. Thanks for the reminder, but I think we remember it now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So,
I'm just excited.
Thank you for owning that. Yeah, exactly. So when you realize pain is a part of life because it communicates a misalignment, right? Pain lets you know something has to be reoriented. Discomfort lets you know that you are expanding beyond what your current threshold is, and that's why it feels intense, because you're now, if you're like this and you start opening up to this, there's got to be some sensation that signals that. And that's what discomfort actually is, and why everyone says you grow or you're uncomfortable. It's because the discomfort is the actual signal of your growth. And then pain is not the same thing as discomfort. Pain is when something is now disoriented, in distortion, and must be addressed. There has to be some signal of where to do that. So one easy example, I say this example all the time because it's very easy for everyone to land for everybody. When you're working out, right, you're doing your reps and you're feeling the burn, right? And we have our statements and we're like, no pain, no gain. If we're actually being legitimately technical, it just doesn't sound as dope, is no discomfort, no gain, right? Because that's the signal. Where you grow is where you feel that sensation. The difference between that and pain is that if you were doing that bench and you tore your entire muscle or your arm broke and snapped, that's pain. Yeah. That's a signal that the actual orientation of something is misaligned. And we can experience pain physically, energetically with emotions. And in that case, it's usually our perception that's misaligned. So when you start to understand that, you realize that suffering is not inherent in existence. Discomfort and pain are very important factors of communication in physical reality. Suffering is where we stay there and hold ourselves to it, thinking that's the best choice to make because we've identified ourselves to it. And that's where the Buddhist concept comes from. The only form of suffering is attachment. And that is absolutely true, because you're more than anything you could ever attach to. So if you think that all you will ever be is this thing, that's a natural contradiction to your existence, and you will experience the intensity of that, and that will appear as suffering. And when we like experience pain and we go, no, I'm just going to deal with it, when it's a whisper, and then it becomes a loud roar, like it's like I have a gaping cut in my arm and it's bleeding, and I'll go, no, I'm not going to do anything about it because I have to deal with the pain. And it's like, well, you know, I could just sew it up for you, and then it'll just, you know, it's fine, let it be. I'm just going to be in it. And then I get gangrene. It's like, okay, we got to chop your arm off. Dang. I guess I could have sew it up when it was a whisper, right? Like, you start realizing these are the concepts of suffering. It just becomes loud, distorted forms of pain, unaddressed or not adjusted. And when you realize this, it means that life is just meant to be lived fully. That means all you want to do is be comprehensive, and you don't have to define your value through suffering or sacrifice. Value is recognized the moment you become present to your life, and all of a sudden everything you see is worth it. Everything in life is worth it. If that becomes your foundation, all the things you thought you had to do to convince yourself something was worth it go out the window, and then you just start living into it, right? You just start living into it. And that is such a huge difference. And for me, it drastically evolved my world. And all of a sudden, ways of making money became more effortless, and ways of like setting things up came, and information channeling became more effortless. And the way that I could even get my body to strengthen or become more flexible with less effort, but very specific movements or things. And it was a whole different framework. And it was really that testament to the more present you get, right, which is to be fully engaged in the moment, as we know, presence, fully engaged in the moment, right? When you're that, you're so open to everything that's there, and you'll actually truly see the sacredness in its offering. And now with that insight, you'll make decisions that feel most aligned for you. And it will be both the command surrender principle at once. So to surrender is not the same thing as to submit, right? To surrender is to allow the things to move as they do, to be as they are, and to be in connection with it all. The command in that is us being consciously and deliberately within the center of our being to guide the energy in the direction that feels most aligned, authentic, as opposed to submission when we're like, no, it's fine, I don't want to do it, I'm not feeling this way, no, it's cool, we just quit, like acquiesce. Or control, we're like, no, it has to be this way, of which that also distorts energy. So when you start to know that principle, command, and surrender, and you realize that the value of your life can be identified right now, then all the things you thought you had to work so hard for can actually show more effortless. And not only that, you won't take them for granted. Because you're so present, you'll actually acknowledge them. And then that makes your other actions, then you feel even more inspired to take more action. But again, then it becomes even more effortless and energetic, rather than painful and arduous and suffering. So it's such an important distinction, and such a slight one, but when made, when everyone in life really realizes their safety and significance is inside of them already, that their value is already inherent to be applied, that when things that you want to experience reflect the nature of aspects of you, this entire framework of humanity will evolve and change, and it will be instant, and it's an actual tangible thing. Like, it's not even like, and for everyone that's listening, in the practice of creatorhood, it is literally the cross section of how you can live in your multidimensional existence in a practical everyday way of life. So it blends the nature of spirit and science. It blends the nature of life the way it's designed. I remember I originally was going to say that it would bridge the gap. It reveals there's no fucking gap, that it's literally all together. And when you know how to live it, all of a sudden these things that seem far-fetched or just abstract or esoteric are actual, it's just actual reality. And then it just becomes regular fucking conversations. And now we start living in that standard. And that's the movement we're bringing, where things that people used to feel uncomfortable around or didn't know how to make much sense of, we create a framework that gives them a chance to see how it applies practically. And now all of a sudden they realize they're A, capable, B, already involved, and C, have something to offer that container all the same, and that's a whole different framework of life. That's
absolutely. And I want everyone to have that takeaway, that we're always safe and significant. Doesn't matter what's going on in the world, what's going on in relationships, what's going on within ourselves. We're always safe and we're always significant. Every single one of us is here for a purpose or reason, unique, purpose or unique pathway, what people like to call destiny or whatever the case may be. Just think about this. Let's lighten it up. You were one out of 140 million sperm that came from your father into your mother, and you were created. Okay. One out of 140 million, and you're here. So if you want to break it down scientifically, that's that. But ultimately, if we are here, we exist, therefore we matter, and that's part of our personal framework. And you guys keep hearing us talk about framework and who we are in general. Let's talk a little bit about the light beings, and also dive a little bit just to let them know what we're up to with CIT, which is a Creator Initiate Training. Talk to them about that only because a lot of people probably asking, well, where is this developed? How can I learn more about this? Is this something you just kind of came up with, and no, this has been developed over time. I was one of the original core members where essentially I was a guinea pig, and we tested all this out with a few wonderful members, which a couple of you are actually on here, most specifically on Instagram, and they know who they are, Rockstar and Madeline and Jenny Lee was at one point as well. And there's a few of you on here. I don't see anybody asking many questions, and we'll get to those at the end, but let's talk about that, because to me, that's really, really important. Outside of all your accomplishments with music and acting and just in the general consensus of the community, what you've put together, especially finally launching it, which I'm so proud of you, by the way, for bringing it to the forefront so people can understand more of what this really is and how much it can shift their own lives.
100%. So when I started the Light Beings, what was cool about it is I kept evolving within myself, right, with this insight and these practices, and it was dope. And I would share it with friends all the time, right? We talk about it. Any opportunity I had to talk about this stuff, I would live in this, so I would talk about it all the time. And then I remember having a conversation with my buddy Mike, and I was telling him, I said, I feel like we have to create a group and like a space where people can come and drop these insights, because I noticed that as I kept sharing and as my life started changing, people kept saying, man, I love talking to you about this stuff. I have no one else I can talk to. My friends think I'm crazy. My family thinks I'm crazy. And all I wanted to show people was they weren't crazy. Like, I don't care if the whole world looks at you and goes, you're fucking nuts. You're not. Yeah. And the more I kept hearing that, I was like, okay, something is asking me to do something about a space where people can realize they're not alone. And because, when you expand in your awakening, it's like everything you once resonated with, you no longer resonate with. And it's very easy to think like, am I actually going nuts?
And some of us feel that from very young, because I felt that from 5 years old. I'm like, why is it that I feel so different from anybody? Why is it that I feel like I literally felt like eyes, and I can observe and feel and see things beyond what was actually happening? And I was like, okay. And for a very long time, I was alone, or I felt alone because of it. And I didn't know who to talk to, but I would write,
Straight up.
And I would find some people thinking that they were it, and then it wasn't it. And then
and that's also part of the journey too. This ain't
I got to experience that, not had to, but I got to experience that so that I can come into my own and realize that, one, I'm unique, and two, my special ability to not just be empathic, but to utilize awareness, to really utilize awareness. Talk about awareness a lot because of that, because otherwise I would have not found guys that developed this practice alongside you and all that. I would have still been, whatever, I'm cool, I'm popular and all this kind of stuff. Everyone loves fake, and it'll be okay. And I can ignore my feelings and my intuition and just kind of follow what everyone tells you to do. But it wasn't. I felt that from very young. And I know a lot of people on this call have felt that way as well. And so awesome. And now you're bringing it to the public.
Yeah, now it's like, now it's worldwide. And it was dope too, because I still remember, when we first did it, the first one I had at the beach was when I made the decision, it was so clear. I was like, I could feel everything urging that direction. All the energy in me was building up. The moment it finally landed is like, I'm doing this tomorrow. And I remember it hit, I'm doing this tomorrow. Then I went to sleep that night. And then I had a dream. And in my dream, this being showed up and was like, cool, so you're going to start the group, right? And start sharing these insights, right? Because I kept feeling like the insights were starting to expand bigger than I felt like my physical body could capacitate. And it wasn't that it felt like it was going to destroy me, but it felt like pressure was building up. And I could feel, you have to start sharing this. There's no way around it. And then when I had the dream and this being shows up and it was like, cool, so you're gonna start the group and start sharing, right? And I was like, yeah. So let me figure out what it looks like. I got to see how I'm going to piece it. And then the dream, it goes, hey, shut the fuck up. And just start it. And literally after that statement, I woke up out of my sleep and I went to my computer and emailed everyone I knew. And I think on this particular email list, I didn't do it to all my, I just literally one email that had like 400 or 500 people on it. I just said, yo, starting a group at the end of every Wednesday, we're going to meet and I'm going to drop some insights. We're going to meditate. We're going to have conversations. Let's explore. And
that, by the way, because I remember my first
January 25th, 2012. That was the very first light, the moment the light things came together, the inauguration, like our annual anniversary, you could say, is January 25th, 2012. That's when it happened. And the first one, I think like 30 some people showed up and it was really dope. And then it was what I started to notice as we continued was just how much this was starting to become a community, just by its essence, because everyone started connecting more. And when I first started, I actually would make sure that everyone got everyone's information so we could create our own database. And then it grew way faster than that. So now it would be like making an app, which we will make. But at the time I was like, we'll make a little directory. Like, remember the yellow pages and shit, right? Like that time period. Now technology is far beyond that. So, but when that happened, I realized, A, this is what everyone's been asking for. B, more of us are ready for it than I realized. C, it's like we're fucking doing this. And then what started to happen in the first year of the meetings was the gatherings was like people started asking then more intrinsic questions. They said, well, how are you doing the things that you're doing? Like when you manifest or when certain things come up and you play it. And I remember reflecting like, how am I doing that? And that sparked like, I think I actually had to start writing this shit down and give people practical tools on how to do this. And that started, the process of, and I remember the first thing I was going to create was called habit shifting, right? That was going to be like the program. And then quickly I realized habit shifting was a part of something, like an exercise. It is not the overall thing. And even though it's an important dynamic. So then that's when I said, you know what? The picture is clear now. And I was doing like these 30-day, awareness challenges in these spaces. And that's where we met Marilyn. And from that, I said, okay, it's time to actually start creating a framework where we're building. And it has to start with some core group if we're actually going to build a community. Because if there isn't some centralized foundation of which this community stand on, it'll fall apart. It'll become all those things that we see in life. And one of my biggest hesitations of starting from day one was like, this ain't gonna be no cult. This ain't gonna become that narrative that we see happen in life so often, where it's like, this is going to be something that genuinely will live in integrity, that will genuinely be about everyone thriving, not one man wanting attention. And I literally kept the light beings in a certain space for 2 years because I wanted to make sure that that's the space I was coming from, like from the inside out and from my heart. And then as you all in the pilot group as the core, it was like through you was the opportunity to see how this stuff lands and in what order and what lands. And I'll never forget, for me, I saw the vision clear, right? Because before I even started writing out the information, I wrote the vision. Like when I first started Live Things, I wrote the vision. And because I saw where it was going. But I'll never forget in the meeting, this moment still lands for me because this is when I think about how far we've come now. And it's in the silence that came to me is what's like on the edge of where we are now, where we're stepping into. So I remember we're all sitting there, right? Like, yeah, it was. We were all in the room in the old place, and I said, like, just so we're all on the same page. I was like, this is about the evolution of humanity. Like we're not doing this just because it's a cool concept, just because it's a trend, and we're not doing this because like we just want to develop as people. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is about seeing humanity become something greater, and that means if all of you are in this room, you are making a conscious decision to step on a path that will demand you think, speak, see, feel, function differently. Mm-hmm. And then that statement, and then it was just silent for like, it's like all that had to land for all of us. Everyone was like, the fuck? And
it was intense to say the least. And I know Rockstar, I think we were all like,
yeah, it was like so real. And in that silence, the dopest thing for me in that silence, and I remember mentioning this maybe a month later when we were at my place all having tea, and I saw the vision of us sitting on a porch where we had all this land, and we were just, and everyone was sitting there sipping tea and vibing, laughing, and we all felt this immense like humbleness and gratitude of, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it. And that feeling I felt in the silence, exactly. That's the feeling, that's the thing that gets us out of bed and we feel it. And now that we're on this verge of now the practice is finally encapsulated in an actual full solidified structure, right? Now that we have that, now the Light Beings has become a ministry and a community. And now we're actually building the structures up. We're witnessing, and I'm seeing all the pieces from the vision come together. And that feeling that in the silence with that vision is now getting stronger as we step forward. And it's like, and we can feel this happening. And it's such a dope thing because it's also happening with integrity. You know what I mean? From the inside out. Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, right. It's like,
I mean, it's one of those things that especially when it shifts, when you've utilized it enough and it's like you keep hammering away and you walk away, but still come back and walk away and like, no, we're going to do this and still come back. And then you keep pushing to the point that it's like, there's nowhere else to go but here.
Yeah.
And you're like, where else are you going to go? It's facing you. There's no running away. So it's either you step in, embrace it, take it along with you, surrender and keep going, or you keep fighting it to the point that you're bruised, beat up and you're just like, oh, why is this? No, embrace it, love it. And when you get to that point where you're actually loving it, and I love when Rocky started that podcast, loving from where I am. When you start to actually love that shit and like thinking, you're like, holy crap, all I have to do is give you some freaking love. That's all you ever asked for. It's why you were so loud in the first place, And that's why with our power statements, saying especially me talking about integrity and honesty and vulnerability and being intuitive and resilient and all that, it still hits. Like I still feel it. And then there's things that when I say it, I'm like, Veronica, you're lying to yourself, because somewhere in my mind, see how I said that? In my mind, not in my heart, but in my mind, I'm not believing that I can do this. But then immediately, because we've been doing this so much, and it was like, it's a practice. So it's like, shut the fuck up, Veronica. What are you doing? Like we're here. That's it. There's no going back. But it's like, it's just continually raising that baseline and like tapping in. And it's like, but I remember at first when I used to do my power statement, I was like, I mean, this is cool, but can I really embody it? Can I really do that? So thank you.
Yeah. For sure. And actually what's really dope as you expressed that, what came through is another testament to where we are as a civilization. I would talk about some of these things in college, nowhere near to the degree of clarity I have now, but definitely in college. And most of my boys were like, that's just Dub. It's just how he thinks. Whatever. He's crazy. It's fine. And right, this is what you say. This is in college. Think like in 2000. I love. That's why I love having a conversation with Callie too, because Callie, when she first met me, I talked about this thing. She was like, "This dude's kind of crazy," but then she started to understand. But when I was in college, you got to think this was like 2000, 2001, 2002. This wasn't as widely spread, talked about to the degree it is now. So when I was in those spaces talking about this stuff, people were like, yo, you're tripping. Like some of the things I would say, they're like, that makes no sense. And even some of it I would share because I would have the insights, but I wouldn't even know what it meant to live it yet. At that time in college, it wasn't that clear. Then when I started the Light Beings, I saw this wave of like, people would show up and go, something about this resonates. But again, it still wasn't fully embodied as a practice yet, right? So there were still emotions where people were like, I don't know, this is kind of weird. This dude's kind of crazy. You step out and it was like, and some people would be with it, some would be not. And we kept staying with it. Yeah. And then it went from, and then, after the first 2 years, we then took it past our own little framework in Hollywood. And I started connecting with other communities in South Florida and other places in the world. And all of a sudden we got two responses, right? Either one response was like, where the fuck did you come from? And like, this is dope. And I'm inspired. And the other things was like, it would bring up so much stuff because it would challenge notions of things that people had lived by and believed for decades, and it was like so it was like rough. So when that started to happen and we started to get out there, then it was like that next wave of things. And then it went from like, people are like, yeah, something about this, but then there was still like hit or misses. People would show up and they'd step away. And then now where we're at, it's a testament to where we've evolved as humans, because now I share this stuff and everyone's like, and the most common phrase I get now is, it's stuff I've been feeling forever and I didn't know how to put words to. That is a testament to the awakened state of humanity. Because now everyone is recognizing it's in there. And what before, like people thought was nuts and crazy, now it's like, it's like a relief. Thank you for saying this now. And so that tells you that A, we've got that space. B, yeah, right, exactly. And those are those things all the way. And now we're on the verge of it launching and spreading like wildfire in the most harmonious and optimal way. And it's only being even more received. And so for anyone that is out there in the world saying some shit like the world's in disarray and it's getting worse, untrue, unfucking true. Every day it is actually expanding and becoming more aligned. And that is also why the misalignments and distortions are getting louder, because we're actually stepping into the embodiment. We're actually starting to live it more. And so when you see something like Creatorhood and it lands, because my buddy Adam in the Sacred Sons called this out for me. He said, I gotta say, what in you had you so courageous to be so adamant? Because I talk about Creatorhood and I go, it is the art of living from truth, right? And I'm super adamant about truth. And when I hear people go like, no one knows what the truth is, I call bullshit on it, because everyone fucking knows. You just don't always like it. Yeah. And so when this course came out, it was like, I'm super adamant about what this is, because it checked me. Like, it wasn't something I just was like made up to go, maybe I'll appear a certain way and not embody. Like, this work, it only works to be a facilitator of it if you embody it. Otherwise, there's going to be too many contradictions. And we're beyond the phase of like, do what I say, not what I do. If you're not living it, no one's interested. And that's also the mark of a civilization that's evolving. You know what I mean? And so all the old institutions that used to teach a certain way, we've been beyond clear that stuff is out of date. So now that we're in this space of that, it's starting to land for everyone. They're feeling it and they're hearing it and seeing it. And so we're witnessing humanity actually step into the call. And more of that is happening than not. More people are receptive than not. And all the things we're witnessing in the world are what we're asking to see, so we know what to fucking address. Because if you don't have the awareness of things that are left unaccounted for, that's why they come up in the first place. If we still haven't addressed certain things in this country, of course we're going to deal with the side effects of it, which is racism, classism, sexism, the distortions of capitalism and the distortions of democracy, but not capitalism and democracy itself, because inherently themselves, they actually could work really well. They just demand people be more aligned in order for them to do that. Yep. And so we're in this space of realizing how to orient ourselves differently. And even though there's still things to clean up, though, like there's still spiritual communities and conscious communities that think they're doing it from unity consciousness, that are still playing out duality, that's just something to clean up. At least they're fucking talking about it, And so we're doing it now, and we're so on time. Like, it's so on time. It's already happening. And our job now, anyone out there listening to this, anyone if you are operating with any degree of self-awareness, if you have ever asked yourself, am I really doing what feels most authentic to me? If you ever ask yourself, well, I don't want to be mean to this person. If you ever said something that gave the inclination that you realize there's more to you, that you're considerate of things outside of you, you're already stepping into becoming the guiding light to show people how we can live synergistically, transparently, more expansively, more authentically embodied, and really truly from that freer place of being. Yep. And we're already in it. Yep. So trust what you're seeing, because it's really offering the insight we're looking for. If we know it's time, because think about it like this, the United States is insanely diverse, right? Insanely diverse. It is an extraordinary opportunity for synergy, for unity, where you can actually take the multitude of creative expressions of cultures and bring them together to say, what would it look like on a certain landmass to have this many different cultures actually find the spot where we reach synergy and unity as a country? And then what would it look like to witness that ripple from a country to a globe.
Yeah.
And we're already in it. Our generation is what's being called to step in. So all our young generations keep stepping forward in it. So like when people go, this old paradigm of this and that, that is in your awareness because we're asking ourselves to step and create a different system and guide them. It's like the whole point is not to judge them. You have to know where we are. Exactly. Exactly. So we're actually getting what we're asking for, and it is actually for our benefit, not against us. But that's also part of the demand of our greater awareness. You know what I mean?
I love it.
So
I know what's beautiful about it. Outside of the fact,
really, yes, let's give the glow first, and then yes, 100% galactical. Which some of us are already playing that, but that's a whole nother podcast conversation and interview. But yes, 100%. Shout out to the galactic.
Shout out to Rocky for dropping our core sauce, our creatorhood sauce. I am more than stories I tell myself, and worthy of the splendor of my greatness. Worthy of it all. We are worthy of it all, regardless of where we are currently. Let that be your foundation. Catapult from there. No. So do me a favor, because we can stay on these conversations for like 20 minutes. Okay. Some really big stuff. United with Nori.
United we stand. Yep.
Talk a little bit more. Is that still in the development stage?
It's in both. We're already going to start launching some things, but it's also in development. So United We Stand, what we're formulating as an organization is what it looks like to actually build from the ground up a individual, a familial, a communal, a regional, a national, right, global, and then galactical, right, process of systems, structures, and approaches to life that are actually built on transparency, synergy, and inclusion to actually live the notion of what freedom truly is and represent what it is when we say unity. So in that notion, it is understanding in what ways, what initial things must be the first approach to support that. So the way that we receive educational information, to have an unbiased look at all the information, not because you want things to go one way or the other, you want everyone to make the best decisions possible for themselves in relation to the whole. And so, and then understanding greater notions of health, unbiased, where it isn't catered to an agenda, where it's the whole notion is we really start exploring the concept of people coming together from different backgrounds, different thoughts, and we bring it together to see what it starts to look like with other people included. What it demands, though, of us is the key that we want to start bringing to people's awareness, which is that personal responsibility. There's no way for unity or synergy or transparency to actually exist sustainably if we don't take full responsibility for ourselves, right? And that's where it starts, that personal sovereignty we must own. And then in that personal sovereignty, recognizing that which we are a part of and we contribute to. And so the United We Stand is the notion of that not just being a cool idea, but a dedication of humans who are actually absolutely committed to seeing that become reality. And that's what we're about in the Light Beings as a foundation. At the United We Stand is a chance for it to be something built from the ground up from a multitude of people all together. Because obviously, this is something we've been doing the Light Beings with, with what I was doing out there in Egypt and with the organizations we're already connected to with building new systems. United We Stand was Noor's initial. She tapped into this initially and started bringing a few beautiful humans on board to start co-creating the notion of it. And that's what we're starting to build out. And as we start to get more things foundationally set, we'll know how to start calling in more people and who can contribute what to it. But that's the notion of what it is that everything we've talked about, this Light Beings vision for so long, it's now happening, and it's now happening with people who actually absolutely know it can be done, no matter how long it takes. And we're also willing to do it.
To take it, right? Exactly. I love it. Now, Can you let us know, because I know some people are probably wondering how they can find CIT, where they can find it. I know phase 1 just is starting or started last week. Phase 2 is coming, but in order for you to do phase 2, you have to do phase 1, phase 3 in February. So, or March, is it? February.
So right now we're currently in phase 1 and we have phase 2 launching, but You can find out more about CIT on the link in my bio on Instagram, and I will make sure it's on a link somewhere. Yeah,
on Facebook.
At Source Radiance. And actually, now that I say that, let me put it somewhere on Facebook. I have not been on my Facebook at all. I will get on my Facebook to make sure this link is on there.
Yeah, you can see it by the I'm like, they're like, who's Kevin? I'm like, you gotta know who this guy is. Instagram's like, all the love.
So true. I have to talk about inclusion. I have to bring some Facebook back in. Because you know what? Like I took Facebook off my phone a year ago. I was like, I wanted certain things I can use, and I only wanted to do certain things on my computer. And I made it on my computer, and I still barely touch it. Same thing with Twitter. I want to play with that a little bit more. We'll get there. So Source Radiance on Instagram. Hit a link in my bio. Go to where it says Creatorhood Initiative Training, and you'll have all the insight about it. We're currently in phase 1 now. The next round of phase 1 will either be in April or May, because we're going to be bringing phase 3 in come March or April in that time frame. So that'll be the next iteration of it. And then we'll also be launching the next round of some events for the light beings. We'll do virtual and in-person events for the light beings, so you guys can get more familiar with our organization, our community. And with United We Stand, we're also going to start doing monthly events. We're doing an event on Tuesday to give you a little introduction of the concept of what it would be like to genuinely feel unity as an experience in your body and in relation to other people. And so it's like a taste of, and the reason we want to make sure that what lands is that it will happen through embodiment and experience. You will not intellectualize yourself into synergy. You will not intellectualize yourself into transparency. You will not intellectualize yourself into enlightenment. It will be an embodied, fully connected thing. And so we're doing events for that too.
Someone actually asked if, because I know that it's not, because we're already a week in and and week 2 is tomorrow. They asked if they can start Creatorhood, although it's already started, but
well, I'll tell you this, actually, while we're on this call, I always give a grace period of the first week, because if you hop in during the first week, you can still kind of catch up. If you miss week 1 and week 2 and go into week 3, there's a solid amount of enriched information in this. It's a lot. And so if you're down to sign up tonight, you still can. The sign up will close, for tomorrow morning.
Time, be there, be square.
Yeah. Exactly. And 1 p.m. Eastern time. So you can sign up. I'll make sure you get the emails and stuff updated to you, so you can hop into class tomorrow, and you'll have the access to the recordings of the first class. So that way, you know that it's there. If you're down, sign up. So click the link in my bio, go to CIT, go to phase 1 and register there. And it's an 8-week course, just so you're aware of what you're getting into. It's 8 weeks every Saturday. If there are Saturdays you will miss, because you're now getting in now, just to put this in your awareness, the classes are recorded, so you can also still catch up and make up. So if you're down, you feel in the call, come rock with us. Come rock with us without question.
Awesome.
Without question.
Awesome. Dub, we can do this for like eons, which we have, but this present moment, we can do this for eons. And I wanted to start closing out with a couple of things that I feel like people can use as tools, even though if you guys have not been writing notes or are going to #replay, definitely watch the replay of this, whether you're on Instagram or on Facebook, because you'll gain a lot of insight, especially if you're looking to really blow up this year, level up, open yourselves up, step into a greater version of yourself. Whatever you're looking to do this year, leave 2020 behind, but still use it as a reference point to create a new standard for your life. Listen, we can go on and on about it, right? And he's already shared a little bit about how you can step into that. However, for this current time or this moment that we are here with these lovely folks, can you please offer one thing, just one little tidbit for anyone who's watching or listening as to how they can start today, just one tidbit on how they can step into their superhuman selves and be more, be more evolved and more aware from now, and taking that first step in deciding and doing it. And before they do any of the other stuff, what's the first thing? What's the one thing?
You know what you can start doing right now. If you want to start embodying this today. Own your voice and get into your body.
Oof.
Right? Like, start to speak up when it's time to speak up, and know how to listen when it's time to listen. And get into your body more. If you aren't moving freely in your body, like where you can go like get physical and do exercise, or dance and move. If you feel stagnant anyway, get more active in your body on a regular basis. What you end up doing is opening up more energy, more capacity of life force energy, more of the power you are. You actually move emotional energy, dance, run, walk, roll around. We do exercise. You guys know we just shake up and literally move and get crazy with it. And then activate your voice. If you do not know how to go to the edge of yourself with your body and with your voice, you will not know how to harness the greater capacity of your own life force energy that you can utilize in bigger ways. So when you have no problem speaking up really loud, you're more comfortable holding that energy in silence, and you make more of an impact. So own your voice, because if you connect your voice, you connect your emotions, and get into your body more so that you become more free-flowing, capable, and the energy inside of you can be utilized for more purposeful measure. So start your day out with it. Wake up, go for a walk. Start speaking the things you want to own about yourself. Start speaking the things you want to talk about in life. Start speaking up to what it's time to take responsibility for. And then keep your body moving on a day. The body's designed to move. That's something without even you having any other insight about creatorhood or life in general, that if you did that enough, you would start to substantially experience different energy and different qualities of experiences in life without question. You'd bring more energy to everything you do, and you'd be more embodied because you'd own yourself more, since you have no problem talking when it's time to talk, or listening when it's time to listen.
That was actually something, and I love that you shared that. Thank you so much for that. That was something that I had to learn, because I have a big voice. So I had to learn to listen more. And I thought I was listening when I was being quiet, but I wasn't. I was looking to respond. I was listening to
Beautiful
respond.
Awareness. Yeah.
And I'm glad that I learned that, because it changed a lot for me. And even now, I'm as stubborn as a mule, and it happens. I have my moments, but then I have to then sit with it again. It's almost like, okay, I'm going in, now it's going again, but then still be present with what's showing up for you, you know, and be okay in the expression, you know, but just come from a center place. Don't come from a place where you're the victim and all that, which of course, you know, I know for sure I've done that for sure. the victimhood, and then stepping into that creatorhood instead.
To own that personal responsibility. And just for a quick tweak for y'all, just one adjustment in what Vero was talking about. It's literally as simple as when you have a conversation, if you choose to have a conversation with someone about how you feel, that you simply say, I feel this, instead of you make me feel this. That shift of perspective is enough to set a completely different cascading effect of owning your sovereignty.
People still do it. And I listen to it and I'm like, I almost cringe. I'm like, but no one makes you do anything.
Correct.
Feel that way. And if you are feeling that way, why? Let's figure out why.
Exactly. To know that's okay. Yeah, exactly. And explore it. Love it.
Gosh, we can keep doing this. I think they're going to be, I think they're going to be part 3 at some point, because this is,
I know, right?
I know you guys are enjoying it, because right now Instagram is going hammy. And
Thank you.
If you do, it's okay. Love it, honor it, and then integrate. Yes, Rockstar. Yes, such powerful and beautiful wisdom. Thank you so much, Miss Spirit, Butterfly Spirit. That changed a lot for you. The awareness. Yes, beautiful. Thank you both for inspirational session. I look forward to more. My birthday. Oh, happy birthday has started late in the UK. And good night. I love it. Oh gosh, I'm definitely gonna go through these comments. And love on all of you. I love on all of you. All of you now in the present, regardless of whether I comment right now. But listen, this was such an amazing conversation. We went an hour and a half, Dub. An hour and a half. And I thank you. I honor you. I'm excited to be there first thing in the morning as a facilitator. And guys, just so you know, I'm learning to be a facilitator. And I'm going to tell you something. It is very challenging for me, only because it's like you're putting yourself on the spot. But if I'm asking more of myself, right? Just like when I started the Superhuman movement, you remember he was my first guest. I was nervous as all heck, and I was like, what am I gonna do here? Who am I? You know, and I felt very insignificant. I felt very insignificant doing it. That's why I was like, I'm here talking about the Superhuman movement, and I don't even feel super. I don't feel like a superhero in any shape or form. But I knew that I had something to share. Yes. Regardless of how it came out. I knew eventually it'll start coming together, and things will present themselves the way that they did. And it's allowed me to use my voice and, you know, the ideas and the people that have impacted my life in ways that I don't even know how to really thank them for, outside of saying thank you and offering that gratitude. But I love you, and I love the family you brought me. And if you guys want to reach out to Kevin, please do. Please come to our family. We growing and get fully engaged in the moment. And so we love all that. We love you, Dub. Is there anything that you want to end with and offer the peoples before we tune out here?
Yeah. Well, first I want to say thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for your shares, for your hearts, for your questions. Rockstar, Jenny Lee, and Marilyn, thank y'all for repping it, squad, dropping insight, letting people know what's up, and always being in support and being on this journey too. I'm immensely grateful, and I'm very excited for where we're about to take all this, incredibly so.
Anything you want to offer for people who are stepping into 2021, like, whoa, what the hell? I mean, outside of everything else that you offer. But I know some of us kind of shook from what happened. I mean, not from what happened, but how.
Yeah. I would say this. With going into 2021, it's no different. There was plenty of things that came up in 2020 asking for us to step forward. And we started to step forward, and there's still things to address. So if what I would leave you with in terms of going into this year is that remember that experience is a service, and what it's offering is a sacred opportunity. Right. And I use those words very purposefully. Start to see experience as a sacred opportunity, that it is intrinsically in connection with you, offering you something very important about who you're asking yourself to be to serve your purpose in this world. So if you take the time to see what the world is showing you and look at what you are doing in relation to it, you're going to recognize where are there adjustments you can make to meet a standard to contribute greater in the world. And starting with yourself, because it's with you to make sure you're well taken care of to contribute. And that's what I actually was going to leave off with is you are the power, which means you're never without it. You don't give it away. No one takes it from you. What I want you to do with that, if you feel inspired, because I ain't going to force you to do shit, but I would offer you is knowing this and doing this with it. Okay. You have an extraordinary opportunity to offer yourself to the world and to everyone that is in your life that matters to you. Do not take that to mean you are a martyr or that that's even the ennobling choice to make. Selflessness and selfishness are both misalignments. The sweet spot of optimization is that you take care of yourself so you can greater contribute to everyone else in the world. If you think you're going to contribute to the world at the expense of your own well-being, it's all going to fall apart because it's not sustainable. History continues to show us that. So make sure you take care of yourself so you can contribute greater. That is the most sustainable choice you'll ever make. So make sure your mind, body, spirit is intact, and that you keep getting clear on your willingness to recognize you're a part of something more than just you. And that's the game. I am great, and so is everyone else. And in that greatness, we can contribute to seeing where we all take it.
Because internal cause, external effect. That's all I got to say.
Period. Period.
Poo. All right, y'all. I want to keep this conversation going and
forever.
Just for the sake of saving all the lusciousness for the course and for our next third of the Fired Up Friday with Kevin Walton, aka Source Radiance. It was a pleasure talking to you. It always is. We just have a grand old time each time. Photo shoot. Arizona trip, by the way, was dope. Still obsessed with that place, by the way. And I'm excited for everything else that's coming. I can see and feel and hear and dream about the vision. And every time that we come together and talk about it, it becomes more and more like real, like
100%.
Like I can touch
100%.
it. Lost my words there, but it's cool. But I love you guys. I love you guys so very much. You guys know where you can find Source Radiance. You guys know where you can find me on
the Light Beings too.
And
follow the Light Beings at the Light Beings on Instagram.
I'll drop it down below in Instagram, please. And I'll go ahead and drop it down here in the comments. You guys will see it in the replay. If you're watching the replay, put a hashtag replay. definitely share this out with a friend, a loved one, someone that you feel can be inspired and impacted in a beautiful way into this community of light beings. And I hope you guys have an immensely awesome day. Thank you, Dub, for being here. And until hasta la próxima. Love you guys so much.
Love y'all. Mwah.
Bye.
Holla.